Hello there. You're listening to Shiz Bills podcast. And here's your host, Shilano.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is a true crime podcast episode and it's on the death of John Ward. If you do not want to listen to hear any of the gory bits of it, please do not listen. But if you're intrigued as much as I am about this, then stay on listening. Now, just to let you know that this was back in a time when I was only 4 years old, so I wasn't aware about this until now. But apparently my family knew about it. So this is the death of John Ward. Please bear with me, I am reading my notes from a notepad, so if you do hear me doing this, folding the page, I am changing the page of the writing of the podcast. So let's crack on and get this show on the road. It was October 14th, 2004, when a farmer from Mayo found a man trespassing on his land. He then shot him dead. Farmer Padraig Nally, 61 at the time, came upon John Ward, a traveller man, aged 43, a father of 11 from Galway, walked into his yard at the farmhouse in the afternoon. John Ward wasn't alone. He was accompanied by his son Thomas, at the age of 21 at the time. Thomas inquired to Mr. Nally if his Nissan car was for sale. John was seen by Mr. Nally entering his home by the back door. Mr. Nally walked into his hay shed and shot Mr. Ward, shooting him with a shotgun. He shot him in the hip and the hand. It was then turned to Mr. Ward had been shot 20 times with a piece of wood, ash. Unknown what kind of shape of it was, but he was beaten 20 times with it fairly hard. Mr. Nally returned to the hay shed to reload his shotgun, then followed Mr. Ward down the road, shooting him in the final time. Mr. Ward died at the scene. Nally then dragged Ward's body from the road to a close field at the time. A little bit more about Nally. Nally never married, he was a bachelor. He never made any trouble with the Gardaí before this happened. Nally used to record and registrate any numbers of cars coming to his farmhouse and would casually throw a bucket of water on soil at his gate to record footprints, tyre prints, as he wasn't home. He was terrified to think he would be robbed again, as he was robbed in February that year when a chainsaw went missing from one of his sheds. His neighbour said Nally had been seen a change of him since early 2003. After he was broken into, he was terrified. A little bit more of John Ward. He was 43, from a travelling community. He had his bumps in with the Gardaí a couple of times, with 80 convictions from 38 separate court appearances, and had convictions of burglary, larceny and assault. The first trial was in Castlebar in Mayo, making it the first murder trial in Mayo for almost a century. During the court case, the court was mentioned that John Ward had a criminal record going for 30 years and had 4 bench warrants. Thomas Ward, the main witness, also the son, was in prosecution and was serving a 11-month sentence when the trial was going on for possessing a knife and theft. Nally became increasingly agitated and worried about his farm during the court case. It caused him to sleep unably with a lot of stress. He spoke to the court saying he, quote, he was agitated and fearful, even paranoid about his safety on the farm. His lawyer claimed that it was self-defense and what he did. Nally alleged John had visited him on the farm 2 weeks prior, quote, saying it was a nice day for fishing, and according to John, well, that's what he said, according to Nally. But Nally noticed that he didn't have any fishing equipment with him that day, which led him to be suspicious about Ward's behaviour and why he was there. State pathologist said that Ward was shot twice. At the time he was passed away, he was crouched position when the person with the gun standing over him shot in close range. Nally said, quote, he was scared Ward would kill him, which why he fired a second shot. The defence team argued provocation as Nally assumed Ward stole his chainsaw. Nally pleaded not guilty to the murder and manslaughter charges. The judge, Mr. Justice Paul Carney, refused to allow the jury to consider a full defence argument of self-defence. He sentenced Nally to 6 years for manslaughter in conviction. Now, Mr. Carney, the judge, quote, said, this is undoubtedly the most socially devised case I've ever had to try. It is also the most difficult one in which I had to impose a sentence. The judge said he would take into consideration Nally's undebauched past, his low risk of reoffending, and willingness to show remorse for his crime, and the fact that the prosecution case was based largely on testaments given by the farmer. There was appeal eventually. Nally was refused leave to appeal of the Central Criminal Court against his conviction of 6 years of jail. The case was appealed again with his team of defence. In 2006, the Court Criminal appealed Padraig Nally's conviction of manslaughter and ordered a retrial. The court said that the judge would not have denied the opportunity to return a verdict of not guilty. Even such a verdict may have flown in the face of evidence. The retrial, repeated again, back in December 2006, similar evidence was submitted to the court, including evidence of Ward's character and previous convictions of both Nally's and Ward's mental states on the day in question. The jury of 8 men and 4 women acquitted Nally for manslaughter, and he walked free. In 2009, the government then planned to introduce a new law of self-defence. In 2010, upon recommendation by the Law Reformation Commission, which was conveyed an existing common law position on the use of force of defence of property. The Criminal Law Justice and Dwelling Act of 2011 was enacted on the 19th December in 2011 because of this, which is absolutely insane, if I may say. So, since then of the court case, Mr. Nally walked free from this. Of course, there was allegations from the other half of the party, which was Ward's family. Ward's wife, at the time, then said, my husband was beaten 20 times and shot. I don't think that's fair. Along with that, as long as far as 2017, Mr. Nally was on a programme on TE talking about his time and all the story of what was going on with the death of Mr. Ward on a programme called Scannel, To Kill or Not to Kill. He only served 11 months of his court case at the time. Now, on an article on the Irish Sun, he's now 75, which is... what year was this? This was 2019 at the time when this, so he was 75. So he's in his 80s. Now, back in this article, he was talking about that a frail pensioner accidentally blasted his pal to death in Mayo when a bachelor shot his friend in the chest after mistaking him as a burglar. Now, due to that probably was caused to Self-Defense Act, which it doesn't say if he went to prison for it or he went to jail, but from it seems from the article, he quotes, "It's vital for your own protection. It got a lot worse. It's gone out of hand. It's abandoned country now. Like the stories I hear now from people all over, and everything else is gone out of control." Now, okay, so I understand where he's coming from because I'm from an agriculture background. We do face times and walk-ins with travelling community, but personally, we have been very lucky. We've had some really lovely people come in and when we say no, we're not willing to buy anything or get our sheds painted by them, they're okay with that, but they always do come back every single year to get it painted. We know, actually, I think it was a year and a half ago, just before COVID, we got our sheds painted by them, and they were quite happy because we paid them and the job was done and they went away. Of course, we have seen that there has been a lot of burglaries and crime in our local area with farming equipment going missing, so I totally understand it. Just to claim, the sources I got from the story at the time is from Wikipedia, MagillFarmer, and the Irish Times. Just to end with that part of the story, obviously it was self-defense. I do not think he actually had to kill him for that to end that way. I think he could have just left it. I know obviously he was stressed and his behaviour recently was agitated because he was terrified. He was terrified to get robbed. And we can't just point at just one group. It could have been so many other groups from the city or stealing, so it can be just one group of travellers doing that. So unfortunately it ended that way. Can't say if that's what I would have wanted, but like that, I mean, it's, if you hear these stories, and I think especially with the court cases, sentencing is so much different here. Like I've seen recent court cases on the news that people who have been like sentenced for killing someone are only getting about 6 years to 8. They've killed a person that is never coming back. And to think about the family of the person who died, but also the family of the person who killed that person. Their lives have changed as much. No, Mr. Nally didn't have anyone in his family, so obviously it didn't really matter. God, I don't know what to say. It's look, it was a tough story. Self-defense, really, we'll see. But I get where he's coming from, but I don't think it was the right way to do it. Right, we're going to do another story, because why not? This is the story of Rachel O'Reilly. Now here's the thing, I actually know a little bit more of the story because there was a documentary recently, I think it was on Channel 5 in the UK, did a story about her, and it's also an early 2000s story again, but I've watched a reading of the years, so it's basically like reliving all the things that happened in the year, and it showed that this story was in it, so let's crack on. Now we have a few sources for this story because it was so worldly wide, recognised and known in Ireland precisely. So the sources are NationalWorld.com, the Irish Mirror.ie, the Mirror Co. UK, obviously that's like the Mirror. We also have the INT News in the UK, again Irish Times, Irish Mirror again, and RT News. So let's crack on with this. Rachel O'Reilly was 30 years old, a mother and a wife, when she was murdered in her home in Knoll in Ireland. On the 4th of October in 2004, she had taken her 2 young sons to school and a creche before returning home. Her husband, Joe O'Reilly, left for work that morning before returning home to belodging her to death with a kettlebell. Joe then returned to work after he killed her, which is insane, I think. He was played dumb when she failed to return up to school to collect for the children, and phoned her own mother, Ross Callaly, to visit the home, see if she was okay. In reality, the murderer knew he was setting up his mother-in-law to find her daughter lying in a pool of blood. Joe was 6 foot tall, had been involved in a 9.5-month affair with an advertising executive, Nikki Pelley, who was 42, before he killed his wife. Alarm bells went ringing when detectives discovered that he was not where he said he was at the time of the murder. By tracking his phone records, the Callaly family then grew up more suspicious and he reenacted her murder to them. In 2007, he was sentenced to prison for the murder of his wife. He continues to deny the allegations, which I feel that is absolutely wrong. But thing is, there's a lot of info on this, so we'll go into more detail now. Mr. Murray was the detective sergeant stationed in Ballybriggan in 2004 in October when he got a report of a burglary in a house called Lama Bayview in Knoll. He recalled, "I arrived at the scene being qualified and experienced scene of a crime examiner. I went in to have a look. It was a sight I'll never forget. My God, she was pulverized. I can never pronounce that word, sorry. Her hair was matted to the floor with the blood right over her ear. You could see down her skull. It was 5 in long. Oh God. You could see where the severe force was used to inflict that. So the poor woman had no chance whatsoever. Absolutely none. It was savage, cold, and unbelievable. Obviously, the twist was he rang mother-in-law to collect their children from creche, knowing she would call to the house to find the body. The brutal killing was the first thought of the robbery gone wrong. By Mr. Murray sentenced the scene to be staged. It's highly unusual to see someone in the state I saw Rachel O'Reilly, having been administered such a beating. The vicious assault was pure replay of hate for this woman. If you hate someone that much, you're going to know them. The seasoned crop became a suspect of Mr. O'Reilly when he said he had any enemies. He said no, neither of them had an affair. Neither of us were having an affair. That sparked him saying, why would he? Neither of us. I didn't ask him. He then looked me in the eye and said he did have an affair. The name of the woman was Nikki Pelley. It's over now. I don't want anyone to know. The house was sealed off for a crime scene for a week, and when O'Reilly returned, that his dark side began to emerge. He invited Rose and Joe Callaly over, insisting it might be doing him good, claiming that there was a sense of place in the house. But when Rachel's grieving parents arrived, they were horrified to find blood still on the walls and ceiling as O'Reilly reenacted the killing to them. Murray revealed he went through the actions and how Rachel would have got hit in front of the head. He even enacted stepping over the body. Whoever did this went to the bathroom to clean up and heard her gurgling and came back and finished her off. Mr. Callaly said that he was getting sick and had to go outside. The evil O'Reilly went through the motions of bulldozing his prone victim. He was looking at me and Rose and was getting a kick out of her reaction. Sadistic pleasure he was getting out of it. And then I knew he was a psycho. Mr. Murray also convicted O'Reilly's guilt, and the manner in which he courted the media added to suspicions. I interviewed the staff of the Late Late Show, which is our local programme in the country, in the green room, and they said he was acting like a man who wasn't in grieving. Now, when I say that, he went on national television to plead to the country of Ireland to help him find the killer of his wife. And little did we know it was him. He was the killer. The Callalys couldn't even take a cup of tea, and they were nervous and upset. Joe scolded the sandwiches and crisps and drank all the tea. He was on his mobile phone and walking around on the phone, talking on the phone. He said he wasn't in one bit clued that what was in stake. As a guest on the show, hosted at the time by Pat Kenny, RT offered O'Reilly a hotel room for the night, but he declined. Now, this was in 2007 when they did the show interview. They claimed that he was meeting a work client, but he had a driver dropping him off in a rat farm where his lover's house was. Mr. Murray said that if you have a man who's going to go on TV to appeal for information about a murder of his wife, he's going to go off with his mistress to spend the night with her. It's just not right. The lead detective of the case learned that Rachel had confided a close friend about a flaming row with O'Reilly, which he delivered to an ultimatum for a change of his ways. He had a cell site analysis of O2, which was a mobile company at the time in Ireland, established that O'Reilly's phone was pinging off the near mass of his house when the murder was happening. O'Reilly offered no comment when he was first arrested in November 2004. With no weapons or forensics, Mr. Murray had no option but to release him without charge. A note later retrieved from Rachel's coffin, which was in the killer wrote, "I'm sorry I deemed nimbness and significant to warrant another arrest." But a phone call from a friend of Nikki Pelley, who said she had told that Joe said that he would kill Rachel to prove a catalyst needed to move the investigation forward. Mr. Murray said, the woman said Nikki Pelley had told her Joe said he killed Rachel and if he thought he would get away with it. Nikki Pelley was arrested. She admitted that he said she never thought he would be serious and he was talking rubbish. Mr. Murray recalled intimate detail that the moment he finally arrested O'Reilly in his mother's kitchen for the murder of in October 2006. He said, "I put my hand on my shoulder and he said, 'Joe, I'm arresting you for the murder of Rachel O'Reilly.' He turned to face me. The blood drained from his face. He went white as a sheet. He was not expecting it." O'Reilly protested his innocence and sat taking notes throughout 2007 trial. Mr. Murray said he had a grand-dressed personality, as most I can never pronounce things today, I'm sorry, psychopathic people do. They have a confidence about them on that they will beat the system. "I never witnessed anyone," quote. In this verdict, the whole court erupted of a cry of emotion. I was sitting at the end of a row of Gardaí who were all involved in the case. Every single one of them were crying their eyes out. Rose came straight to me and had a big hug. I burst crying. I cried. Which, to this day, he still claims that he is innocent and did not kill Rachel at the time. And because of all this, what happened, I believe when the documentary was on, there was 2 documentaries. So there was Channel 4 had one and RTE also had one, which was a year ago. They mentioned and I actually watched a little bit of it, they were mentioning in the programme that O'Reilly had followers, female followers, like supporting him and had feelings for him, and because of that he had like quotations relationships with him even though he's in prison, and they claim that he was innocent, but absolutely not. He's not innocent. He killed her blatantly, and obviously with that, you know, it's been nearly 17 to 20 years the death of her. I just feel sorry for the kids, the 2 sons that like now they have no mother, but they have no father now either. That would have been a massive strain and so hard for the grandparents to tell their grandchildren that your mother's not coming back, your father is in prison for killing her. It's upsetting. And from the photos, seeing her, she looks like a lovely woman. And I'm gonna be honest, Mr. O'Reilly looks like a fat fucking dickhead. I don't know how he, like, from looking at the photos of him, from the whole thing, he's not good looking. He thinks he's good looking, but honestly, he thinks he was gonna get away with it. No. He looks smug in every photo, and to think that he was gonna get away with it, like, nah. But like, also, in a way, let's be fair, any true crime podcast episode on a killer, you know, they always want attention. You know, I think I said this before, and I was listening to a lot of episodes of Nelson, who was in the UK, who was a murderer who killed so many young men in I think it was the 80s, 90s. Like even when he was in prison, he was looking for more attention. It's the same with O'Reilly, and it just I don't get it. We will never figure it out, really. Just reading there that apparently 2 children know the truth now. There was never going to be a happy ending in this situation like this. Now, what year? That was 2019. So this is okay. So this is okay. I found an article. So the documentary of that Ireland had on for this, it's called The Case I Can't Forget, which was on RTE1 on a Monday night. Apparently there was 1 million people watching it, which was extraordinary. There's not many people watch RTE anymore. I say that nicely, because RTE are kind of dying out now, and the summertime there's nothing on. Yeah, that's really it. I think from the 2 stories we've read, one was self-defense. The other one was just blatantly killing just so you can be with your lover. I just, I think if anyone's never happy in a relationship, just break it off. Just be honest. Don't fucking go and kill the person. You don't have to do that. There's no need to do that. But yeah, that's really it. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will see you guys all soon. If you want another true crime podcast episode, or you want me to do a story that you know of, and want me to read it on the podcast, let me know. Tweet it at Shay Spills Podcast, and I will see you guys all very soon. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to Shay Spills Podcast. Make sure to follow Shay Spills Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Shay Spills Pod and Shay Spills Podcast. And check out Shaylin on her socials at Shaylano. Thanks again. Thanks for listening.